Hello everyone, my name is Alex and today I want to share my experience with you focusing on the use of rear risers in speed flying. Take in mind that I'm not an instructor. The intention of this video is not to provide a guide on how to speed fly, as this should only be done under certified instruction. Instead, my aim is to showcase the different techniques for piloting a speedwing as well as compare them with its advantages and drawbacks. This will allow you to gain a better insight if you're already a pilot, but it will never replace a professional instruction. To facilitate navigation, I've divided the content into different chapters, which you can directly jump to on the video's progress bar or by referring to the description. This way you can skip the aerodynamics part if you are already familiar with it and go directly to the key part of the video. Also, if you should have trouble understanding my English pronunciation, you can click on this button to activate subtitles. So let's start. For a better understanding of the upcoming chapters, it's essential to familiarize yourself with the risers of your wing and the angle of attack. The front risers, which are attached to the leading edge, are known as A risers. The B ones are connected to the middle, while the Cs, also referred to as rear risers, are attached near the wing's trailing edge. It's important to note that this configuration is typical for speed wings like Rapido, Flame and Mirage. However, not all wings feature the same number of risers. Some may have more or fewer. For example, the Level Wings Fitz has only 2 risers, so A plus B, and the Swing Mirage 2 RS still has 3, but with split A risers. The angle of attack is the angle at which the relative wind meets the profile of your wing. Altering your angle of attack will affect your sink rate and airspeed. A greater angle generates more lift, while a smaller angle increases speed and sink rate. By opening your trimmers, particularly the C risers and to a less extent also the B risers, get longer, reducing your angle of attack. A lower angle of attack increases speed and steepness, but also raises the risk of collapse, especially in turbulent air. On the opposite, increasing your angle of attack to generate more lift involves closing the trimmers and applying brake. Pulling on the brakes folds down the trailing edge, increasing the angle of attack and thereby creating more lift. However, it's crucial to pull with caution, especially on small speed wings, as excessive braking can lead to a stall, causing the wing to lose its flying capability and potentially initiating aggressive spins and rotation. While it is likely to recover from a stall with a larger paraglider, if you know how to react proper, on a speedwing it's nearly impossible to recover, especially if you're close to the ground. With trimmers opened, another method to generate lift is through back riser steering, using the C risers or, depending on the wing, a combination of B and C risers, especially if the wing features a BC bridge like the Ozone R3X. Since opening the trimmers lengthens the B and the C risers, pulling them back in its initial state will simulate closing the trimmers and therefore reduce sink rate. This topic can be somewhat controversial. I believe there isn't a universally best method for piloting your wing. Rather, it depends on the situation, personal preferences and also on the wing you're using. There are professional speed flying pilots who mainly fly on the brakes, while others swear on back riser piloting. It's important to understand the functionality of each method so that you will be able to choose the one that suits you the best. This will also help you in making right decisions based on specific situations you may encounter, such as flying into turbulences. Each system offers its own advantages, so let's check them out. If you're transitioning from paragliding, this system is the one you will be more familiar with. Flying with your brakes allows you to better perceive and respond to inputs the wing is giving you, particularly in turbulent conditions. This allows you to fly the wing actively and therefore better prevent collapses, even though this is less of a concern with speed wings compared to standard paragliders. You can also make sharper turns, but at the cost of greater altitude loss. One significant drawback of relying only on your brakes, especially when proximity flying, is that you can control your lift only up to a certain point. While pulling the brakes works well for generating lift momentarily to, for example, avoid obstacles, if you encounter a longer flat part where you need to maintain altitude, you will find yourself still with trimmers open, resulting in a higher sink rate than if they were closed, which on the other hand is possible to simulate while piloting with the rear risers. The use of rear risers can enhance your skill set as a speed flyer, but it's essential to ensure you're using them correctly. Even after mastering this technique, it's crucial to never discard the use of brake toggles. Flying on rear risers can be preferred because it creates less drag compared to using brakes, which means more speed. However, it requires greater sensitivity, and that's why it's usually better to make small adjustments with the C risers rather than pulling down sharply, as you will increase the risk of stalling the glider with bigger movements. One important thing to keep in mind when flying with your hands on rear risers is that you feel less inputs the wing is giving you. But just because your feeling turbulence is less, this doesn't mean that it's safer. It's actually the opposite. In turbulent air, it's better to leave trimmers closed and stay on the brakes to better prevent collapses. The main difference between flying BC or just C is that you are going to disturb the wing's profile less and you can use energy in a more efficient way. That's because, as I mentioned earlier, when opening trimmers, you not only increase the length of the C lines but also the B ones. Therefore, pulling B plus C together will reproduce the gesture of closing the trimmers as closely as possible. Now keep in mind that this doesn't work well with every wing. For example, in my experience the Ozone Rapido 3 has bigger resistance when pulling down B plus C together, so it might be easier and more comfortable to pull just the C. Meanwhile, the new R3X, the evolution of the Rapido 3, features a BC bridge built in and is a lot easier to pull. The bridge ensures that when pulling down the C lines, the B ones will also follow. This means that on a wing with BC bridge, it is no more necessary to grab both the B plus C risers if you want to fly like that. Still, it's up to you what you prefer. I, for example, still like it more to grab B plus C together on the R3X, even if it has a bridge built in. But this is just personal preference. Consider the Flame from Level Wings as another example. Even if it doesn't feature a BC bridge, it provides a butter smooth feeling when pulling down BC risers, making it much more comfortable and ideal compared, for example, to the Rapido 3 because of its strong resistance when pulling BC. To illustrate better the advantage from using BC compared to only C, let me share an example from my experience. There's a particular line I used to fly which ends with a very flat part. Before I discovered BC flying, I had been using only the C ones on my Flame for the past 2 years and found it great. However, when using only C on that flat section, I typically managed to fly proximity only half of its length. This left me with two options: to land earlier, usually around halfway down the slope, or to fly higher and enter the slope later. But as soon as I discovered BC piloting and tried it, it felt a little unfamiliar for the first few flights, but soon became my favorite way of flying. I could fly the same line with the trimmers fully opened from the beginning to the end, which was not possible with only C. That's when I truly understood the potential that BC flying can offer. Depending on your personal preferences, your wing, your flying location and the conditions you're flying, your choice between which system to use may vary. I will now summarize and outline the advantages and disadvantages of these three ways of flying so that you can determine which one suits you best. More precise piloting. Brakes provide a better feedback from the wing, such as turbulences, enabling you to react quicker if necessary. Therefore, using brakes right increases stability in turbulent conditions. Improved response in low angle of attack scenarios. Such as in aggressive turns or barrel rolls, the glider responds more effectively to brake inputs than rear rises. Altitude adjustment. When using your brakes, you're going to lose more altitude, which can be seen as an advantage but also as a downside, depending on the situation. When flying proximity in steep terrain, you can see using your brakes as an advantage, as it allows you to stay low more easily. Increased drag. Braking generates more drag, slowing down your glider. Reduced speed also means less safety margin. Limitations with open trimmers. When using brakes while trimmers are open, it's impossible to simulate a continuous opening and closing of the trimmers for a permanent improvement in glide performance, as achievable with BC flying. After a strong brake input to generate lift and hook you up, the glider quickly returns to its original sink rate. Smoother input and adjustable glide ratio, particularly effective when flying close to terrain due to smoother input and better glide potential. Higher speed. It maintains higher speed during flight by creating less drag, thereby preserving more energy for various lift-generating needs, enhancing safety. Reduced feedback from the wing. Turbulent conditions that might need pilot input to prevent a collapse could still feel smooth and acceptable with your hands on the rear risers, while actually being scary when using brakes. Limited travel compared to brakes. Increased risks to stall your wing if you're not used to fly with your rears, because of them having much less travel compared to brakes. Only for smooth conditions. Rear risers are primarily suited when flying with trimmers opened and therefore for smooth conditions. While they offer a little bit of control to spot collapses, brakes provide much better control. Enhanced lift control. You get even better lift control and improved energy retention compared to using just Cs. Ability to simulate trimmer closure. You can reproduce the gesture of closing the trimmers, potentially maintaining improved glide performance for longer. Effectiveness varies depending on the glider. Depending on your wing, inputs may feel less smooth than with C, and therefore small directional adjustments might be more comfortable using only C rather than BC. In summary, there isn't a singular best method for piloting your wing, as it comes down to personal preferences. But the use of rear risers can definitely enhance your skill set as a speed flyer, but it's essential to ensure you're using them correctly. If your wing allows it, using the BC rear risers can offer some advantages over using only the C ones. From my experience, I can tell you for sure that BC flying works exceptionally well with the Flame and also the R3X. Yet, knowing when you need to switch to the brakes is crucial, especially when it's getting more turbulent. Taking advantage of both approaches and combining them in a smart way will let you take the most out of your flights. For example, if your wing glide ratio is excessive for a particular part of the terrain, transitioning from rears to brakes can make it easier to stay low. As I mentioned in the beginning, my aim with this video was to demonstrate the different methods for piloting a speedwing alongside comparing them with its advantages and drawbacks. Take in mind, this will never replace a professional instruction. So take care and safe flights.